Welcome back, Midnight viewers, to Anthologies Attack. I'm Father Malone, and with me, as always, is LLapur. Tonight, we're devolving from the usual format to give you the first in what appears to be an ongoing series of superhero schoolyard brawls. But rather than pit characters against each other, who would win in a fight, Batman or Superman? It's Superman. Here, we're pitting characters against themselves, using their cinematic or television incarnations to accomplish just that. We're starting with the DC villains. Enjoy.
We're going to start really hard, actually. We're going to start with Lex Luthor.
Okay.
So I'll just do versus. Whoever wins moves on in the bracket. All right, ready? Gene Hackman versus Kevin Spacey.
Oh, Gene Hackman would just murder Kevin Spacey. Gene Hackman is just so diabolical, that Lex Luthor. He's so lacking any morals. And the thing is, the difference is that Lex Luthor is very charming. Kevin Spacey is not charming at all as Lex Luthor. Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor is just a mean-spirited little prick. And has no charisma, has no charm whatsoever. He's just bald.
You sense the violence in the Gene Hackman?
Oh, absolutely. There's just a underlying just psychopath under there. Like he literally, he's gonna murder everybody in New Jersey just to prove a point. Just to distract Superman. There's nothing there. He just throws the kryptonite on him and just kick. Like, it's unexpected violence from Gene Hackman. You expect Kevin Spacey to be violent.
To hit you with a crowbar.
Yeah, but okay, Gene Hackman, you don't expect it from. And when she goes, when Miss Tessmacher, she's like, Lex, my mother lives in Hackensack. And he just looks at his watch and looks up to her and shakes his head no. That is some cold-blooded. Yeah, that's fucked up.
All right, Gene Hackman versus Jesse Eisenberg.
Really? You're going to actually have to entertain this?
Okay, never mind.
Jesse Eisenberg has the resources, though. He's got the money and the power already. But again, he's Jesse Eisenberg. He's a little punk. I feel like Gene Hackman would definitely. But if you know what? If you bring up John Cryer.
Just about to.
Yeah. I think John Cryer might pull that one out of his. But I think John Cryer is the best Lex Luthor. He's my favorite, at least. Why? Because I feel like he is the son of the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor almost. Not canonically or anything like that, but I feel like he's in that spirit as
closest in tone as far as the ruthlessness.
Yeah, the ruthlessness and sense of humor and arrogance and charm. I feel like that John Cryer Lex Luthor is as charming as John Cryer played Lenny Luthor in Superman 4.
That's right. Okay, John Cryer versus John Shea from Lois and Clark.
Ooh, he's the forgotten Lex Luthor, and he was really good. He had hair, and then he lost it all. But his performance was very good.
Speaking of ruthless.
Yeah, and very ruthless.
Yeah.
And what a great delivery by John Shea, but still John Cryer.
John Cryer beats John Shea. Should we go voice actors as well? Should we throw a couple of them in here?
If you put Clancy Brown, and then Clancy Brown just automatically wins.
Okay, we're going to keep voice actors out of it because that's the one I was going to. All right, John Cryer versus,
Rosenbaum?
Michael Rosenbaum. I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here. Rosenbaum all the way.
Rosenbaum is the wasted Lex Luthor because, man, Smallville I did not like. But, man, he's good on that show.
Fucking great in that show.
He
is my favorite Lex Luthor.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Look, I think Nicholas Hoult is a fine choice for Superman.
Yeah.
But we already had a winner.
I do think that Nicholas Hoult is going to be pretty close to Michael Rosenbaum because I feel like Michael Rosenbaum is who Nicholas Hoult grew up on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Holt probably, that's his Lex Luthor.
Yeah, that's his Lex Luthor.
But that might force him to go completely the other direction.
I don't know.
But we've already seen the other direction. Which
but then James Gunn's Lex Luthor is Gene Hackman. So what I always love about Gene Hackman is that Gene Hackman at his heart was like a swindler. He was, dare I say, Trumpian in his nature. He's just a real estate hustler and a huckster. He just happens to be brilliant. But he's such an arrogant prick that gets in his way every single time.
Can I say that what I like about the Hackman People have a problem with this, but what I like about the Hackman character, I like that he's on the back foot. I like that he's a criminal and he's underground and can't show his face. I'm perfectly at ease with billionaire Lex Luthor. I'm also in love with President Luthor. But that version of the character intrigued me.
But he's the Gene Hackman Luthor is the Luthor that Tom Mankiewicz and Dick Donner grew up reading. They grew up with fat guy scientist Lex Luthor, who was always had a scheme. And like he was a criminal and he was just always underground doing his thing. That Lex Luthor.
That Lex Luthor lost his hair in a science lab experiment.
When he was the super boy. And that Lex Luthor eventually got slimmed down and he started wearing the purple and green and the power suit. But that's that Lex Luthor. That Gene Hackman Lex Luthor is in that spirit. I think had a Marvel budget or whatever, had the tech been there then, that Gene Hackman would have gotten in a crazy costume and flown around and stuff.
No, we got Rosenbaum for the win here, but had Rosenbaum come in before John Cryer to face Gene Hackman, would we still be talking about Rosenbaum as the winner?
No, because I feel like the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor would ultimately...
It's tough.
The experience, man. He's just middle-aged. The middle-aged Lex Luthor who's been doing that his whole life versus a 30-year-old Lex Luthor that Rosenbaum was playing. Just experience would trump it.
Here's what I'll say in favor of Rosenbaum. His Lex Luthor was genuinely crazy. He had actual psychotic breaks on the show.
Yeah.
I think that Lex Luthor, I think he would actually take Hackman. Because his LexCorp, what he was building with secret levels and fucking harnessing supervillains already, I don't think Hackman's Luthor could even fathom that idea. Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor exists because there are no supervillains.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Although he did steal a nuclear missile from the...
No, that's what I'm saying. He worked great because
Yeah,
there are no supervillains to deal with. Once supervillains are around, Lex Luthor is small potato.
Yeah, no kidding. I can't imagine that Lex Luthor having to deal with Cesar Romero with the Joker, which is murder him.
Rosenbaum, on the other hand, could totally...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Rosenbaum for the win.
Although, golly, wouldn't you have liked to have seen Jack Nicholson and Gene Hackman?
Oh, yeah.
And then Michael Keaton and Chris Reeve.
Early 90s Avengers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. They don't have anybody else for that Justice
League.
Yeah,
I called it Avengers.
No, you're fine. But still, just seeing those two giants act against each other.
Here we go. Moving on.
All right.
Still keeping it in the DC universe. We're talking the Riddler. All right. Jim Carrey versus John Astin.
Jim Carrey wins that one. I love John Astin, but John Astin is not the Riddler.
John Astin is wiry.
Yeah, he's wiry, but
You think his version of Riddler is less likely in a battle of wits with the Jim Carrey's Edward Nygma? John Astin.
Yeah, I gotta give Jim Carrey's Riddler the credit of managing to build a giant blender on an island off of Gotham City and sucking everybody's brains. That's a pretty high level scheme.
That is true. In that case, let's throw him immediately against.
And he figured out the Bruce Wayne. That's pretty high.
Riddler always does.
That's possible. Yeah.
I think every iteration of the Riddler
eventually.
will figure it out. Then it's got to be Carrey versus Gorshin. Think Gorshin will take him?
Gorshin is the Riddler.
Yes.
You're gonna throw all these other Riddlers at me, and I'm always gonna say Frank Gorshin.
There's only one other one I'm going to throw at you.
Paul Dano.
Yeah,
Paul Dano.
He's pretty meticulous, that Riddler.
Yeah, he's very meticulous. He's very interesting. He's not the Riddler.
You need the jumpsuit.
Yeah, he's not going to put on that jumpsuit, and Frank Gorshin's going to bust through a window wearing that jumpsuit and cackling and just being the baddest villain this side of the Joker. Like, that Riddler was dangerous, I always thought.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, it's because Frank Gorshin.
Yeah, Frank Gorshin. I always have been, back in the 90s and they've been making Batman forever, I was in favor of just cast Frank Gorshin. Who cares? He could have still played it.
I would like to if I had.
Yeah.
Okay. Carmine Falcone. John Polito versus John Turturro.
John Turturro,
I agree. John Turturro versus Tom Wilkinson.
You know, this one is hard because his Tom Wilkinson was pretty good.
Tom Wilkinson was really good.
Yeah.
I almost believed he was Italian.
I almost believed it was Italian. and the monologue that he gives Bruce Wayne is just spectacular, man. That monologue, he's just like, look at you, Bruce Wayne, Prince of Gotham. But you know, if I shoot you right here, that's great. But John Turturro.
John Turturro, yeah.
Because he's John Turturro.
There's no question.
Yeah. Are you kidding me that John Turturro will take a baseball bat and kill you to death and not break a sweat?
I heard they cast John Turturro in the movie, and I went, oh, God, as what? Oh, Falcone. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. I believed it. I believe it that he's the Catwoman's father. I love that angle, by the way. Catwoman is Italian, and her mother is Cuban. Well, since I'm Cuban, I discovered that. I was pretty proud of that. I'm like, that's right.
Okay. General Zod. We'll start easy. Sam Witwer on Smallville played a person.
Oh, yeah, I remember. I did see that.
Sam Witwer, but also in the same show, Zod was played by Michael Rosenbaum. Zod versus Zod.
Oh, wow. Did he have Zod's brain or something in him?
Yep.
No.
It's kind of an even match. It's just Zod versus Zod.
Yeah.
So we'll give it to Rosenbaum.
Is it the same Zod?
Yeah, it's the same Zod on a different body. So, okay, then let's say Smallville Zod versus Michael Shannon.
Oh, Michael Shannon. He's a great actor, man.
Yeah.
He had that cool little beard, that cool little Caesar beard and haircut going on.
Yeah, man. He was ready for bongos and fucking poetry slam.
Yeah, he was. And he's like my age, but he looks 10 years older than me. He has this a real authority to him. But
he would completely destroy. Which begs the question, because the only other Zod, really is, his name is escaping your head.
Oh,
Terrence Stamp.
The great Terrence Stamp.
Terrence Stamp versus Michael Shannon. Tough one.
Physically, Michael Shannon's Zod was an animal. But come on, dude. Is he going to outwit that guy? That guy, I don't know. That guy was pretty stupid in the end. He got outwitted by just he got taken down by the old switcheroo. But
yeah, we weren't privy to Terrence Stamp's General Zod's revolution, but unless you watched that deleted scene, in which case his only act of rebellion was to go into one room, break a crystal, and get caught and slammed into the Phantom Zone before getting tricked by the dumb.
But I think Michael Shannon wins.
I think so too, man.
But Terrence Stamp has the best lines.
Yeah.
Come on. When the guy's like, but there is somebody who can stand up to you. Who is he? What is this imbecile?
Show him to me.
And the guy's like, oh, God, Zod.
Who is this imbecile?
Who is this imbecile?
And there's only been one Captain Cold, really.
On the TV show?
In the Arrowverse.
He was spectacular.
Wentworth
Miller as Captain Cold was one of the finest supervillain performances ever, man.
Thank you.
He had so much personality, so much gravitas, so much fun, and his line delivery was just spectacular, man. I love him. Those first 3 or 4 seasons of The Flash are great. Then it just goes off the rails. But like when it's just getting started, and especially that second season when it was just supervillain after supervillain after supervillain, it was really neat.
We got 2 Freeze-based villains in the DC universe with Victor Freeze and Captain Cold.
Yeah.
I've always preferred Captain Cold. Captain Cold has a rogues gallery. That's his group, the rogues gallery. And he has an actual moral code.
Yeah.
You can't kill anybody and hang with the cold.
And
he's, you know what? Even better than everything, he's got those fucking glasses. Those fucking white shades with the little slits for eyes. Oh my God. It's my favorite thing.
I love Mr. Freeze when he's done well, like on the animated show, he's spectacular. And there's 5 minutes in Batman and Robin that are pretty good.
Right.
I feel like he's just a common criminal that found some great tech, and he's like, dude, I'm gonna be a fucking supervillain. And then all of a sudden, he becomes as cool as his name. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like,
well, absolutely.
and what I liked about Wentworth Miller's performance is that definitely was a guy who was putting on airs. Like he definitely was playing the, Leonard Snart was definitely playing the part when he walked around and he talked like this, and like he was trying to be cool, and like, it was so subtle. And I'm like, I think James Gunn should just dig him up and just bring him in.
1000%. That's the best thing to come out of the Arrowverse, was finding him and finding that fucking role for him.
Yeah.
Because, it's, and I've read reviews, people don't like his performance. They think
I don't even know.
it's too mannered or whatever. And I'm like,
no, that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah, it's exactly what it should be.
Because that's a guy that you can drop in a room with the likes of Lex Luthor, and he's going to put that on, and you're going to believe it. I feel like that he got Boba Fetted too early. He got Storm Shadowed too early in the run of the show.
Yeah.
He was so popular as a bad guy, he got turned into a good guy. That's what I mean when he gets Storm Shadowed, basically. Because Storm Shadow was a very popular G.I. Joe villain, and he got turned into one of the Joes. Boba Fett eventually is now more or less a good guy now in the Mandoverse.
Yeah, a good guy, crime boss.
He's
Doesn't
like,
that just make him the head of the Salvation Army?
No. You know how like in modern crime shows you have all these like ethnic gangs, and the worst gang is usually the Russians, and the nicest gang is usually like the Bloods of the Crips.
Yeah.
That's like Mando. When Mando runs the Bloods of the Crips in the movie universe, basically. He's like a crook, but he's just not like the level of the Huts.
Who are?
Yes. But I feel like they could have done a couple more seasons of Captain Cold and Heatwave being bad guys. And that's my favorite performance by Dominic, what's his name? The guy who plays Heatwave.
Oh, Dominic Cooper.
Yeah. I remember he's God bless him, he's terrible as Dracula in that Blade movie. With that no neck and just like
fiasco, that movie.
Bro Dracula, Chadula, and then but he as Heatwave, he's great.
I agree with you. They were in that Prison Break show together.
Oh yeah, they had that. I never watched that show, but
never watched it either. And people told me that they were good in it.
Yeah, they have great chemistry.
I assume they were, but yeah, I'll take Captain Cold every day of the week. Alan Tudyk has played every character via voice.
He sure has. Alan Tudyk. He's classically trained. He went to Juilliard. He's been around forever too. When we get to the Batmans, Adam West wins the Batman. He trumps everybody because no one can bring himself to hit him. I can't hit this guy.
Then he's pulled something out of the utility belt. It's all chum.
Shark repellent. They wrote that into a recent issue.
The shark repellent?
Yeah, like
I saw it in something.
Batman is chasing a character called the Red Mask, who's a multiversal variant of the Joker, but who never became the Joker. So he just hops around the multiverse making Jokers. Somebody did some DMT before they wrote that issue. Yeah. But anyways, Batman has to follow him. Real Batman from the comic book universe follows him through the multiverse and ends up meeting Adam West. And Adam West is like, hey, here, take my utility belt, because Batman's lost his gear. He's like, take my utility belt. And Batman's great. And then at some point, he's fighting a shark in the thing, and he's like, wow, I finally met a variant more prepared than me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't get rid of a bomb.
But if Batman knows he goes out into the ocean a lot, he's going to have shark repellent.
Well, that's true. He's got a bad boat, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, for fucking...
One of my favorite toys growing up. I had a little plastic version of the bat boat from the Adam West show.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And a fin on the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't made for the pool, but you could bring it.
Was it the Mego one, or was it
It was a fragile plastic. Because eventually the fin broke off.
Oh, yeah.
And I was quite sad.
Kingpin. John Rhys-Davies versus Michael Clark Duncan.
Oh, John Rhys-Davies versus Michael Clark Duncan as the Kingpin. Holy sh!
John Rhys-Davies was more of a techno Kingpin. He had a little motorized chair, and he was constantly checking video screens.
Yeah, and I remember him biting on his microphone while he was getting excited and Daredevil was getting his butt kicked. No, he was a terrible, terrible Kingpin.
Michael Clark Duncan would take him apart.
Like he had a beard, he had a full head of hair. I think he could have played the Kingpin had, like someone more skilled had directed that, or had someone given a crap about what was going on in that NBC movie of the week that I watched when I was 13.
I think it was an Incredible Hulk, wasn't it?
Right? It was Incredible Hulk, right?
Yeah. It was one of the trial of the Incredible Hulk where Matt Murdock is defending Banner. What was his name? And it wasn't Bruce. It was
David Banner.
David Banner, right? Because Bruce was gay.
You know why they call? Bruce was too gay, and I'm just like, because of Bruce Wayne. I don't understand where that Bruce is gay.
Bruce LaBruce, I guess, is what was on the producers' minds at that moment in the 70s. But this was in the 80s, so it like had the only joke I
don't know Bruce was in charge of the sheep.
The only Bruce sort of reference I had ever known was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The Australians were all named Bruce.
Yeah, hello Bruce, I'm Bruce, and I'm in charge of the sheep. I'm like, what? Yeah, I never thought that was weird, but I remember that, and had that black Daredevil costume.
Well, they kind of replicated that when they did the Marvel series as well for the first season.
But yeah, that whole first season, he just had that ninja suit on.
Yeah,
looked like. That was a little more like that Romita and Frank Miller proto Daredevil and that Daredevil Year One or whatever that they did.
But okay, obviously Michael Clark Duncan would tear.
Michael Clark Duncan. So I'm going to go back to Michael Clark Duncan. He was really good in that thing. That movie is not very good. There's a good movie in there somewhere, but whoever cut that picture was probably a studio executive because that. Really messy. It's got all of these like really dated music drops in it.
Oh my God, Evanescence, wall to wall.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday and they were talking about music drops. I think it was Unspooled, and they were talking about, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, how it has, the Beastie Boys in it. And the fact that, you're putting in pop music that's like 10, 20 years old in your future movie gives it this sense that it's already a classic almost.
Right.
More timeless, but like putting like the current pop hit in it nowadays really just dates the hell out of it. Well, it's like any movie from the 90s that's a Will Smith song in it. It's just awful.
Well, if you're using a music supervisor who is known for their current thing, then you're gonna go wrong, I think.
Yeah, I think the music supervisor over at Marvel now is pretty clever. With the one that they've used for the past decade or so, that keeps everything in a sort of classic sounding, it's like everything's got a timeless feel to it as far as the music goes. Their music selections are always, and James Gunn's his own music supervisor. And he finds out, he's got this, and this.
Ultimately, that's what I find. It's when the filmmaker is curating the soundtrack that's when you're going to get a soundtrack that will not sound dated 10, 20 years on.
No, yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, Quentin Tarantino built his whole career doing it.
I liked Michael Clark Duncan's Kingpin, but like you said, the movie is a mess. There are way too many characters. There are way too many plot lines going on. It's just overstuffed, and you can't focus on anything. And that's unfortunate because I liked his Kingpin. I think we didn't get to see enough of him. Nevertheless,
his delivery is great.
Oh yeah,
he does, and he's not very fat. He's just buff. So it's just, I would like to see him eat some rib. Michael Clark Duncan's a talent we lost way too early. I always really every time I saw him on something, he put a smile on my face. Here's this giant dude who shouldn't be a good actor by the stretches of, traditional ideas. You know what I mean? Like people think, and he was great, man. He had so much screen presence. His delivery was always really on point. And like I said, his delivery in Kingpin is right on. He's actually the Kingpin. I buy him 100% as a Kingpin, the way he speaks and all that stuff. Oh yeah.
And fighting when he goes up against Daredevil at the end of the film, I fully expected him to take Daredevil apart.
Absolutely. That Daredevil's weird though with that. But like I said, there's a good movie in there because all the ideas of him sleeping in the isolation tank, and him with all the painkillers and being all beat up. That's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to recommend that film, but
and Colin Farrell looks stupid, but you know.
Oh, he breathe. That movie comes to life when he shows up.
Yeah. Colin Farrell's a great actor. I think he's not that underrated, but I think people tend to forget how good he is. For guys, in my age group, I always really, really enjoy whenever he's on screen, except for Alexander, but that's a whole nother thing.
Oh, yeah, that's not his fault. Everyone was just excited to go work for Oliver Stone doing a bit like a sandal and sword epic.
Not realizing that Oliver Stone had lost his mind by that.
All gone. Now, Michael Clark Duncan, let's put him in a room with Vincent D'Onofrio. What's going to happen?
Oh, Vincent D'Onofrio is just going to kill him in 3 seconds. God bless Michael Clark Duncan and all his ability and his talent and his wit and his charm. But Vincent D'Onofrio literally is Wilson Fisk. If that whole multiverse theory is to be believed, he's just a variant of Wilson Fisk who just ended up becoming an actor instead of a crime boss, because that is the best casting. Maybe, it's on par with Chris Reeve and Robert Downey Jr. as far as this is the comic book character. Here he is, 100%. There's no interpretation here. There's nothing wrong with him as the Kingpin. There's nothing but no, he's huge, he's fat, he's buff, he's Shakespearean, he's a street dog. He does it all at once. Vincent D'Onofrio, pound for pound, one of our finest actors.
If not the finest. He astonishes me every time he's on screen. His Wilson Fisk, you're right. It's so much better than we deserved, because we get to see the depths of that man's soul. I'm on the Kingpin's side on that series.
I know, me too.
And I should not be. He is a despicable human being. Nevertheless.
But he's so much fun to watch. He's so much fun to watch. He's as good as, and a good comic book villain is that. You got to have a good time watching the villain, because they're supposed to be the most despicable people on earth. And, and a good movie villain has got to be fun to watch. Vader's fun to watch. He's evil, but man, that suit swashing around with that cape and that sword, it's great. And Kingpin should be no different. And every time he's on screen, it's just incredible. He's one of my favorite things about the whole MCU is I hope we get more of him, and I hope he goes up against Spider-Man. I want to see him,
Yeah, I want some street level people in the MCU now.
I love the Daredevil. That's the one I liked about the team, because the Punishers, the casting is good, but the show wasn't very good. The Defenders was okay. Luke Cage, I really liked. Jessica Jones, the first season was pretty good, and Iron Fist was awful, but Daredevil was consistently good all the way through.
Speaking of Bullseye. Okay, Bullseye in the MCU and the TV universe, that was Wilson Bethel as Bullseye.
Okay.
Up against Colin Farrell.
Because the other guys have barely been Bullseye at this point.
Yeah, he's pretty good with a baseball, I've noticed, and he can make some trick shots, but he's not gonna plunk a peanut into some guy's throat who's bothering him because he's snoring too much and murder him that way. He's not going to take a paper clip and turn that into a missile. When he pulled off his cap and he had the bullseye in it, not even that was great, but the big street fight where he throws Daredevil's baton and it ends up killing his dad. There's a Colin Farrell points at the wounded man, points to his forehead, points to himself. Bullseye. Oh, and I went, and at that moment I went, oh my God, this movie's going to be great, not realizing the cacophony that would come afterwards. But I felt that he understood that movie more than the filmmaker understood that.
Yeah, he did. He gets it. I really liked him as the Penguin. He was doing a something heavily inspired by De Niro as Capone in The Untouchables, but that's okay, because when I was 12, I was watching The Untouchables and going, "That's the Penguin." So, I'm really looking forward to that TV show. I'm like, I will spend in that Gotham. Oh, I love that Gotham. I loved the Batman. A little long, but for the most part, I really, 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 really like. I think Matt Reeves understands Gotham City, and he gets those characters. And even though he's doing a grown-up R-rated version of it, like where everybody's really serious, it's still very good. And I read yesterday that Pattinson might go up on a Penguin show, so that's going to be neat.
They can have no other Batman characters show up on that show, and I'm going to be riveted to it. I love Matt Reeves' take on that character. I love his take on Gotham. I love his take on the Batman in general. That is, honestly, Batman Returns is my favorite Batman movie because I just love how gothic comic book it is. But if there's one film that I would point to and go, yeah, that's Batman, it would be The Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to lie, that cinematography is gorgeous. It's just a beautiful movie, man. It is just a really pretty Gotham City, and more colorful than the trailer lets you believe. Because the trailer just tells you, oh, we shot this whole movie with a red filter. Not really, because there's a lot of it that's blue, and there's a lot of it that's green. It's more colorful than the promotional let you on, but it's not like all orange like Batman Begins is.
And it pays to take a new look at Gotham. I understand that a lot of the Gotham City scenes were filmed in Scotland this time.
Yeah. Well, Scotland has naturally Gothic architecture.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. That you think Glasgow is Gotham is pretty interesting. Is a smart thing to do.
I liked the one aspect of the Nolan films that I liked is that they went to Chicago and did it. And it immediately made it not look like New York, which is what we're kind of used to for Batman.
But I knew it was Chicago immediately looking.
Exactly. That was the thing. He didn't change it. He didn't change it enough.
No, the first one tried to make it a little more, comic booky with, the crazy train thing going around and stuff. But
yeah, but what happened to the monorail and all the rest of the movie?
Yeah, no, they didn't make it to the second one. But the second one just looks like, well, I remember that scene from The Untouchables, that street. I remember that street from Ferris Bueller. So it's just a little too Chicago. I like the idea of making Gotham holding the Chicago place in the DC universe being the second city. Okay, I get that. It's, not Metropolis, but Gotham City's the east. I think we said it before. Gotham City belongs on the eastern seaboard.
Oh, yeah. No, it needs an ocean.
Matt Reeves one nearly eastern seaboard. And I really like that the Gotham Square thing, but like that central part of the city is just gorgeous, man. I really like that. I can't remember the cinematographer's name, but I know Deakins was talking about, had him on his podcast, and it was a really good one. And they talk about how they shot a lot of the Batman on a volume, but really, because you usually tell right away it's on a volume. Even The Mandalorian, which is fantastic and has the best special effects ever on TV, you can tell they're on the volume.
Almost every time. I think they were using it mainly for driving when they're in the car, like moving the camera around. It's very, it's almost sleight of hand, and you can't just go look at the glory of it. You have to get around and
but all that stuff
still in the world.
When him and Catwoman are on top of the building, and that beat up in that building, that's all a volume shot, man. And the whole thing is at Magic Hour. That would have taken 2 months to shoot, and they shot it in a day because they didn't have to fight the light.
I did not realize that. Okay, see, even better. The movie gets better and better. Matt Reeves he's sort of my favorite guy working right now.
Yeah, he is, because I loved his Planet of the Apes movies. I really enjoyed him. That first one that he did, the second Planet of the Apes movie is, I guess, his first one or whatever. There was that one chimp that didn't have all the hair on his face.
Coda.
Huh?
Coda?
Yeah. Was the most amazing looking CG character. I think Matt Reeves has a real good handle on working on an effect movie and doing the invisible effect. Yeah, it's an effects movie, but it's an effects movie, but I'm not focusing on the effect. I'm not here to show off the shots. If I want you to just kind of be in my world. They're really good. I like him. I agree with you.
Yeah, he seems to be one of the few filmmakers who adopted the idea that these are tools.
Yeah, and he's got a great mustache.
He does, actually.
Yeah, I he's one of those guys that I have a list of 5 or 6 guys and gals that I'd love to produce my next movie. He's really high on that.
He would steer you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Speaking of the right direction, going back now to the MCU, we're stepping above the street level here. Now, this is an either-or situation. Most MCU characters have only been played once, if not twice,
Yeah.
And so we have to kind of pit them against one another. Here we're gonna take Scott Pollan versus Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull.
Not Paul, and everybody shows up, and he's Captain America shows up with his rubber ears. I don't know. God, wonderful. And I'm just like, is he? He's Italian. Yeah, Scott Pollan was the Red Skull in Albert Pyun's 1989, 1990 New World Pictures Captain America, starring Matt Stallinger, the son.
Was it the grandson?
Huh?
Was he the direct son? I thought he was his grandson.
Oh, was his grand?
Maybe.
Does it really matter?
It doesn't, and I don't care to look him up.
Yeah, the only thing you know about the actor is that he's related to the most famous reclusive writer ever. Okay, great. Good for him.
Here's the best part of that movie. In 1989, I was standing in the Showcase Cinemas in Revere, Massachusetts, and I turned around and there was a poster with Captain America's shield on it, and it said Summer. And I went, holy God, they made a fucking Captain America movie. And that level of excitement and enjoyment was the sum total of my appreciation of what we eventually got.
Yeah. Do you remember Comic Scene?
Oh my God.
And they had that comics to film thing in the back. That was the first, basically the birth of the internet was that section right there. And I remember reading that thing and always kept it on a look. And like, I remember every year the Captain America was always on that list. And I remember being, 9, 10, 12, whatever. And in Captain America, rumored as the Red Skull, Marlon Brando.
Now that would have been something.
Oh, Captain America, come all the way here, Nazi Germany.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been Italian in that version, I can tell you.
Why did they make him Italian?
I understand that they filmed the movie in Italy, and then, well, Axis powers are Axis powers. So,
I guess so.
So I guess this skull answers to El Duce.
But we're going to take everything away from that awful, awful, awful movie. The scene where Captain America shows up in the Red Skull's base, and he's got a rocket, and he's dressed up like a Nazi, and those 3 minutes.
Oh, at the very beginning.
At the very beginning, they're cool. The rest of that movie is garbage. But
Yeah,
that was Albert Pyun. I was friends with him on Facebook for a few years before he passed. A really nice guy. He was just constantly working, that guy. Even, poor guy had dementia or something really terrible at the end there, was still making a movie. So, God bless him for that. And it wasn't just the fact that he directed 300 insane like that. None of them are great or anything, but man, I liked Cyborg a lot when I was like a kid.
There you go. We can point to that one. I like that one.
By Jean-Claude Van Damme, that's always a good day.
Yeah, that's right.
Hugo Weaving definitely.
Yeah, there's no question. Hugo Weaving would just decimate.
Hugo Weaving's a great fucking actor. He's a great villain actor. I wish he wasn't so precious about the makeup. I wish they would have figured out a way just to put the bath on his face and just let him be a CG makeup. I don't know why they didn't just do that. I, granted, would want to wear the makeup just to look like the Red Skull. But you and I both work, have worked monster jobs where you got to wear that stuff. And I remember at that Goratorium when we used to work, the Eli Roth joint a bunch of years ago, I did that Bernie thing where it was a full head makeup and it's all glued to you. And I had a panic attack wearing it. Like, it's not comfortable to wear that. And I've been acting since I was a 9-year-old. And sometimes that makeup is really, really uncomfortable, really, really constricting. I read that Jim Carrey went to CIA torture expert so he can get through the Grinch makeup. I get it, dude.
Well, in that case, he was head to toe. He was encased, but I played that role too, so I know just how constricting and claustrophobic Bernie could have been, and prosthetics in general can be. So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Hugo Weaving. I don't think at that point, this was like 2009. I don't think at that point they were ready to go full CG face replacement with the main character and the thing when they can do it with makeup. But then,
yeah, they didn't have Dark Knight money like they did with Two-Face. Well, because the Two-Face was the CG makeup.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful. So that was around the same time. But yeah, and that's only 1 or 2 scenes, and he's like laying in bed, or they got a locked off camera in another position. The Red Skull is
twice the budget.
Yeah, and Red Skull's in motion through every moment of this movie.
But man, he's so good. His friggin' accent's amazing. I like how he really went out of his way to make the Red Skull Austrian. 'Cause that's an Austrian Arnold Schwarzenegger accent if I've ever heard one. Kipton, the guy, I'm such a fan of you. Yeah, he's so good. I'm annoyed that they killed him off and he won't come back because he's the best villain they've had up until Vincent D'Onofrio. I think he was my favorite of the MCU villains.
Here's the thing. I loved Civil War, and I love Baron Zemo as a character, but that should have been the Red Skull.
Oh, absolutely.
And he should have won at the end because Zemo wins at the end of that movie.
Yeah. Or the Red Skull should have been Alexander Pierce in Winter Soldier. At the end, ripped off his head and it's Hugo Weaving underneath Robert Redford. Or just say Robert Redford is just the Red Skull now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's just, it's been 100 years, whatever, 75 years. He's had comic book plastic surgery. So I think they dropped the ball on the Red Skull, and I think not having him around hurt the MCU a little bit as far for my case. As a comic book fan who grew up with that stuff. I also feel like I wish I would have seen him be more of a Nazi. But that's because I love the joke when like a superhero's fighting a Nazi and the Nazi does something stupid and the superhero goes, "Master Race, huh?"
They even made a Master Race joke. In Highlander, there's a deleted scene where he meets his secretary, where she's a little girl in World War II, and he's saving her from some Nazi who shoots him full of holes.
Oh, yeah,
He's immortal, right? And the guy barks something at him in German, and Christopher Lambert kind of spits out, "Whatever you say, Jack. You're the Master Race."
Okay, I'm going to applaud you right now. I have never heard a Christopher Lambert impression before, and that was fucking spot on. I met him once when I was maybe 19, 20 years old working at the Warner Brothers studio store. He came in and he bought a $500 Bugs Bunny pewter statue. One of those, there's a guy who makes pewter things. Like clowns are his main thing. And then he made a bunch of Bugs Bunny ones, Warner Brothers ones, I guess for a collectible. But he came in, he was very, very nice. His credit card said Christian Lambert. And I go, I go, "You're my favorite Tarzan, and I love you." And he said, "Oh, thank you very much." Whatever that laugh he does.
I like to imagine he has that statue prominently displayed in his home.
Oh, yeah, right. Like right next to Connor McLeod's sword. Connor McLeod's sword.
Oh, he's Connor, baby.
He's got the little, Bugs Bunny.
Did
Did he buy a Pepe Le Pew? God, man, I hope he would have bought a Pepe Le Pew.
Would only be appropriate.
He's a great dude, man. He always made me happy when I was a kid. And for some reason or the other, I always just really liked that guy.
There's something about his face. It's effortlessly attractive.
Yeah. And that accent.
His countenance seems bemused. If you can come off bemused and not smug, then that's a rare commodity.
That's a pretty good analogy. That's pretty much what he does. What was the last thing I saw him in? Was he in he's in that Coen Brothers movie. He's in Hail Caesar. He plays that movie director.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I gotta watch that again. That movie's been growing on me lately.
Yeah, it's a get better every time you watch a movie, because the first time you're watching, like, this structure gets on my nerves, and then by the end of it, you're like, it's a lot like a Robert Altman movie. Here's this big community, and one guy is going to kind of like float around the community a little bit, but everybody's going to be kind of really off kilter, and we're going to kind of go off in little tangents and little directions. And once you kind of get used to that, the movie's a delight.
Plus, I like the idea of a deeply religious studio fixer.
Yeah, that's what a great character, and a real guy. Based on a real guy. There was a studio fixer. He was involved in the Superman suicide.
Oh my.
Yeah, I think that if I could be mistaken, but I think that movie with Ben Affleck where he plays George Reeves.
Yes.
Great picture.
Hollywoodland.
Hollywoodland. Really good movie. I think George Reeves was banging the wife of the fixer or something like that. Like, I know that the fifth sir that Mannix character was based, or whatever that guy's name was based on, had something to do with the George Reeves murder.
Up and away, man. On that note, we're gonna end this session of superhero schoolyard brawl. We'll
Sounds
get
good.
at you next time. We're gonna have to start taking on the actual heroes,
And we picked George Reeves.
but that is gonna be something.